What is up, everyone? Welcome to another. I was gonna say edition or episode, and I kind of got my wires crossed, so it came as like a dipidode. Welcome to another edition / episode or a dipidode of Snap on Ego. My name is Brad, otherwise known as Bradsiver, and I am joined by Chris Bootman Bootay. I think we should roll with that from now on.
You're just not editing that out. Fantastic. You guys are here for the quality content.
You know, I got to roll with the punches, and by having skill in training and live presentation, it's all about understanding when the mess up is and either building upon it or flat out ignoring it completely.
I'll say this, and I don't know if anybody else has noticed, KM Best leaves in a lot of flubs in his videos. So we're just doing the KM Best style for this video.
Yeah, but he'll like do the flub, pause, go, and then do it again. But it's like I just immediately was like, there's the mess up, moving on. For those who want to get into public speaking of any variety, one of my biggest things I would teach kids, especially when I was teaching, was in regards to taking pauses and allowing your mess ups or flubs or whatever to not soak up the entire air out of whatever you're doing, and just allow the pause to take over. And then for all everyone else knows, you didn't mess up. It's just a dramatic pause.
Yeah.
If you go, which on the podcast I'll do typically because I don't give a shit for the most part. But if I'm actually giving a presentation or trying to speak in front of people, uhs and these just are removed from your vocabulary entirely, and you just give a dramatic pause.
Yeah. No, that we could tie that into Marvel Snap, because I get a lot of people like, oh, I want to start a channel, or oh, I started a channel, but I get so nervous, I'm so anxious. Like, I used to have crippling social anxiety. What helped me a lot was when I worked at a rehab, I had to do groups in front of 50 to 100 people sometimes. And then eventually I started a YouTube channel. But like you're saying too, I learned to just roll with it and like give those pauses. The audience thinks that you're like thinking deeply about something, right? You're not just speeding through things. So yeah, definitely works. I love that advice. So if any of you are aspiring content creators or public speakers, take that for what you will. But we got a lot of exciting stuff to talk about today, Brad. Let's kick this thing off talking about our girl Nico. How you liking her so far? I
think she is so good, way better than last week's card, which was Black Knight, which I guess, do we want to talk about that at all? We didn't get an episode to talk about Black Knight really. Like the last one, we talked about it in the future sense and why we thought it might be kind of
well, that's kind of where he landed.
He's pretty
Yeah. The best deck, I made a video on it. The best deck that I found was like doubling them up with like Moon Girl and like Zabu. You can do some silly stuff, but you need like the stars to align. We're going to be talking about the OTA changes here. Like they're showing discard some love. So we'll see. But I think,
I guess so. But to build upon what you're saying with that type of deck, I have played that deck. It is very fun. You're right, when the stars align, it is awesome, and it makes me really happy. It's like the classic double She-Hulk, double Titania, and stuff like that. People, hey, Chris, guess what?
What?
If we just removed the entire discard plan from that deck,
better.
It would be better. It would be so much better.
Yeah, that's the thing about so many cards and what people have to think through. Like, because this is what we see every single week with like new cards. Like they just take it, they toss it in the best deck. They're like, card's fucking busted. And you're like, well, like this deck was pretty good. And like, if you take the worst card and replace it with something, that isn't like Angel or Quicksilver, just some random fucking card, like it's going to still perform decently. But yeah, so that's kind of where Black Knight landed. But Nico, I'm going to give the most controversial opinion. Like, I don't think she's amazing right now. That's just where I am. I think she's fun. I think she's good, but like, I don't know. Like it just, like, I haven't put her in anything. I'm like, oh shit, right? Like I can think of so many other cards where like just Elsa Bloodstone, for example, right? You toss Elsa Bloodstone, the season pass card, in your deck, and you're like, holy shit, this deck is dope, right? Take last season pass card, Loki, you take Mobius, you take Eliath. Just like think of all of the recent new cards lately and like how much you feel that impact when you put it in. Like Nico, I haven't felt that yet.
Mm.
Like, I think she's good and fun. Like, the way I've been talking about her, I sold my son on her. He opened up one cash, got her on the first one. I'm like, she's like a mini Thanos, right? Like, she just makes the games more interesting. So, like, in that respect, I think she's really fun. But yeah, like, I've been watching, I'll shut up in a second, but I've been watching so many streams and so many videos, and people want her to be like this amazing meta breaking card so bad, and I just have yet to see it. I don't know.
So similarly to like that, to build upon that, right? The idea of wanting her to be a meta breaking card is not the type of card she's ever going to be, but that's perfectly fine. But that's not a representation of her power level. It doesn't make her weaker as far as perception goes. In fact, it can make her stronger because she's a sneaky, incredibly powerful card. What I mean by that is, think Iceman, for example. What do we talk about with Iceman all the time? It's hard to evaluate his power because you don't see the impact that he has. You don't know what they hit. You don't know if they hit a card that's going to make it so they don't play anything. Or maybe a better example might be Echo, right? In which she sits in a lane. They're not going to play the ongoing stuff behind her. You don't really see the actual impact of like the opponent's thought process of like, oh man, I can't go here, but I am forced to go here, and they get pigeonholed based on their ongoing, like Darkhawk or whatever, and you're able to take advantage of that. You don't see that actual power come to fruition, right? Because it's something that you can't visualize. Nico is not quite a 1-to-1 ratio of not being able to visualize it, because you absolutely can. But it's not going to be in the same way that a Professor X completely stealing a lane like on 5 or on 4 is going to be like, well, that was amazing. Look at that. Like, it's not going to be that type of play. However, her being a 1 cost and therefore having an opportunity cost be the lowest it can possibly be in Marvel Snap, in addition with her, utility and all of the options she has for her spells, even if they're random, gives her the ability to be the ultimate Swiss Army knife card we've ever had.
Yeah.
You mentioned Thanos, right?
But let's do this. Let's do this. If you had to put her on a tier list, S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, like for me, I'd say like B plus, maybe A minus, right? Like, would you say this is an S tier card? Where would you put her? Like you said, I think she's a Swiss Army knife. I think she fits into a lot of decks. She's almost like, I don't know. Like, she's just one of those utility cards. And like, yeah, I think you can just toss her in. It'll make her games more interesting. She might win you some games, might make some areas a little bit more powerful. You know what I mean? There's going to be some games where you're just like, oh, the RNG didn't help me. But yeah, where would you put her on a tier list? Would you, like, are you so far in this and you're like, this is S tier?
I can only answer that by asking a question. Where would you put in it to kind of get a gauge of where you visualize your tier list, so I can make sure we're on the same wavelength of like power scale? Where would you put a card like Loki or Eliath?
I'd probably put Eliath and Loki. I'd probably put them A. Okay.
So what's an S tier card for you? Like, is that like the most broken that needs to get nerfed kind of card, or is that reserved for the SS tier that's like, that means ban it?
Like S tier, just like always and forever good. Like, I'd probably say like Jeff. I think we recently got a Mobius in there. Okay. I think people are sleeping on Darkhawk a little, but he's circling back around. But Darkhawk's been one of those S tier cards, I think Thanos probably slips in and out from S to maybe A, depending on the meta. You know what I mean? Just like cards that have been just like forever super good, and they're like doing like really impactful things.
Okay. So based on that, then I would say she is probably at the top of A, bottom of S. Very much on the cusp right there, and easily can be an S tier card.
So if like free-to-play players, they just live on caches, if they came to you and said, Brad, do I get this card? You immediately say yes.
No. because there are cards you
How
prioritize
can
more.
she even be close to S tier? I don't think if you could say for certain, yes, get this card, it doesn't belong in S.
Because it's not as simple as saying she's okay. I'll put it this way: she's not blanket S tier in a vacuum on her own. She's contextual in the fact that she's a utility piece that works amazing with cards. But I'll put it this way: if you don't have Jeff, if you don't have Iron Lad, you need to get those first. That's the problem with the card acquisition in the game. I would say she's close, very close to those cards. That's why I'm saying bottom of S tier. But you need to prioritize those first. And the decks that she's going to be the best in are the ones that you need those cards. Like, look at Thanos. Look at the only one I could say you can get away with as a Series 3 complete player would be Destroy, like a Deadpool Destroy, and run like Null and her. Those are your only non-Series 3 cards.
She's definitely like, since we were just talking about Black Knight, she's definitely not like him where we're like, oh, I put her in and I wish I had something else in here, because it'd be better. You know what I mean? But like at the same time, if I'm looking at the best decks, do I want to replace her? Like, for example, right before hopping on, I was playing around a little and like I think the Sarah list is pretty good right now. It has like Shadow King and Luke Cage and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I don't know what I would put, like swap out for Nico in this deck. You know what I mean?
So the reason I would say that she is in close to, if not an S tier quality card, is due to again that utility she brings, and it's mostly because she's a one drop and the opportunity cost is so low. And I'll refer to her as a glue. So any deck, no matter what you're playing, for the most part, you're always going to run into issues with curve, right? It doesn't matter if you have the most optimal, spread where you're going to more often than not get your best curve of, 1 through 6, right? Be able to kind of split everything nicely. Some games you're going to have that turn 3 where you can only play a 2-drop, or you can only play a 3-drop on 4 or whatever. You have to float that one energy. And if you're not playing high Evo, that's a little awkward and that kind of sucks, right? She's the glue that can help solve that. And by also adding an extra little layer to that, the best places she's going to succeed in are the ones where that chance of her being played alongside other cards is more likely, which is why at the moment I think her best home is Thanos, because the stones are where she's the best pairing with, because she's essentially a 7th stone and it has Iron Lad, for example. Why have I been saying Iron Lad for ages before he was ever played in Thanos should be in Thanos? Because a 4/6 that draws a card and does a thing, or afflicts 4 cards on the other side by 1, or can buff Thanos later on, is likely a playable card, right? A meta staple, especially the ones that just draw a card. Absolutely. So Nico, being a pseudo 7 stone in that kind of event, where she's giving your stones that already have amazing utility even more utility, is incredibly powerful. But that rule of thumb can still apply to any other deck you play her in. It's just you do want to find the ones that have the best chance to make use of that opportunity cost, because you want to be able to fit her in nicely.
Yeah, so a couple things. I do think right now she best fits with Thanos, but I think she's going to be amazing once Werewolf by Night comes out next week too, because all her effects are on reveal. Second thing, real quick, is I don't think, and I think this is our curse, Brad, I don't think you're ever going to get the credit you deserve for being on the fucking train of like, get Iron Lad in a Thanos deck, right? Now people don't even build a Thanos deck without Iron Lad, and you were out here like, hey, I'm going to do a giveaway for anybody who can get Iron Lad in a deck because I know it'll work, right? So all of you listeners, just know that, go spread the word. Brad was the Iron Lad Thanos guy, nobody else, all right? But getting back to Nico, here's the thing. As you talk about Nico, and you're just all about Nico, there's like no discussion of the potential downsides, right? Like yes, she's a 1-drop who fits in, when you need her, right? Because it's a lowest opportunity cost. Sometimes you have weird curves, so it's good to have a good 1-drop. But what about those rounds when her ability is next card you play, you destroy? right? And you have nothing to block it. And she's basically like a 0, but worse. You know what I mean? Or it's going to change a location, but the locations are benefiting you. You know what I mean? There are definitely weird situations you get in with Nico and you're like, this is going to kind of screw me, right? Even though she does have there's a lot of situations where it is good. You can definitely mitigate some of those downsides, like, oh, she's going to destroy my next card. I play her last on turn 6, so I don't got to worry about it. Just weird things like that. But you got to admit, sometimes you get into weird positions with her, and I think that alone brings her away from S, right? Like, how many times have you had like Jeff in your hand and you're like, oh, well, Jeff could definitely screw me right now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think she deserves to be on that anywhere near that level.
Chris, what's your favorite deck right now?
I've been playing a lot of decks. I don't know. I'm glad the bounce is kind of coming back a little bit. What have I been playing? God, I don't even have like a go-to deck that I've been playing. I don't know. Except for like the Sarah list. Sarah list, I like it just because I can counter people and laugh. But
all right.
what is your reasoning behind this question, sir?
So let's use bounce as an example because I know that's your favorite all-time deck, right? You typically play the Hood in that deck, right?
I can't remember. I don't think the recent one I've been playing has it. But yes, typically there is a Hood in there.
Okay. How often do you play the Hood each game? And how often do you draw the Hood late in which you're like, well, I can't fucking play this?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know those kind of statistics. What are you getting at here, Brad? Just spit it out. Quit beating around the damn bush.
So just because there are instances in which the card is not beneficial for that particular line does not make it a bad card in any given deck. I will say, Nico is a card, and I talk about this in the article I did recently for CCG, that there's a very good chance that she's a card in which you play 30% of your games, and 70 or 60% of those games you don't ever play her. But that's okay, because the utility she provides in those games in which you do play her is impactful enough in which it could turn the tide of the game, whereas if you didn't have her. There are plenty of times which the spell won't line up. There are plenty of times we won't draw her, and there are plenty of times which the spell could line up, but it's not the best play. That's okay. If you sit there and try to shoehorn her in, and I can say that about any card, by the way. If you try to shoehorn any card in on a specific line because you want to make use of them and say they did a thing, then you're playing the game wrong. And Jeff is another great example of that, because there are plenty of times in which Jeff, I'll have him sit in my hand and I'll never play him because he's not the best line at that given time and he never has a time to fit in. It's also about thinking ahead and saying, well, if I don't play Jeff now, there's a very good chance based on my hand and my curve and what I expect to draw, I'm never going to play him the rest of this game. Am I okay with that? You can say the same thing about Nico on occasion. The games in which I do play Jeff, usually he's very good. The games in which I don't play Jeff, there's probably a good reason for that, but that's okay.
Do you think, let me ask you this, do you think 3 months from now, we're going to see Nico with as high of a play rate as some of the other top cards? Like, we're talking like 30%. Like, I think right now Mobius is just right below 30%. He's at like 27% or something like that. Or like, do you think she'll reach like a Shang-Chi level, Jeff level, Eliath level?
I could see her living comfortably in that 15 to 20% range in a bit, simply because of her uniqueness and how cool she is as a card. Obviously, she's incredibly low right now, but this also depends on how many other spotlights she shows up in, how many tournaments show up in which she's a very good card in those decks, and like quote unquote pro players or grinders are able to kind of showcase her abilities a bit more. It's only been a day, so it's hard to give an estimate. She's not on the level of high Evo in which even casual players are going to be like, oh, I got to pick this up just because it's so cool, but she's close.
Yeah, she might even be one of those more complex cards. Like, especially like, I almost made a video today about like a Thanos Nico deck, but I think KM Best is probably one of the only people who can get away with Thanos deck for a video. Other people, they don't want these complex decks. Like, I was thinking about doing it, and even in my intro being like, hey, you want to make the most one of the most complex decks even more complex? We got Nico to add it here. So yeah, we'll definitely see. I definitely think she's a good card. Like, I don't think she's anywhere near like other cards that have been overhyped. I convinced my son to get this card because I just think long term, like, she's at least interesting and everything. I don't think we're anywhere near seeing like where she fits in optimally, but kind of like what you're saying, it's going to be hard to tell as well too because she's very situational. What are some of the best situations? Like, if there's people listening right now, what are some of the best situations you've been in where Nico just did really cool things? Like, I've had situations where she's duplicated my Deadpool, she's duplicated my Elsa, she's added power to my Deadpool. You know what I mean? Like, some really cool things. One of the lamest powers on here is when she gives herself power. I don't care. I don't want to turn you into a 1/4. I don't give a shit, Nico. But do you have any games off the top of your head where you're just like, that was dope?
Let me take a look because I have a bunch of screenshots of stuff that I've done with her that I've been kind of like making note of while I've been playing, and I can kind of give you an idea of that. That's a, but I mean, there's been a lot of instances where she's just, what I can give you off the top of my head is like playing her in Destroy, in which she's made X-23 better for me personally. I've copied X-23 or buffed X-23 and things like that so many times, which makes me feel more confident in actually playing Null in the list that I'm running. Because now I'm like, I can definitely get that extra energy to where I can go ahead and play Deadpool alongside Null on 6 and all that good stuff. So I do like her in that regard. She's also just really flexible with the stones in general. I've destroyed Reality Stone or Time Stone plenty of times so far in my testing with her, and just basically draw 3 is always going to be a great effect. And just having the opportunity to, have this insane amount of choice in what your lines are going to be looking forward after you do those kind of things. Buffing the time or buffing the stones as well, like buffing the Soul Stone. Of course, in addition to Elsa, she's very good. She's just been surprisingly played. Like, I'll put it this way, I did not expect to play her on 1 as much as I have. I was always thinking in evaluating her, I was like, well, probably, you're not going to be playing her on 1 almost ever. And it's going to just be like, when she fits in, and that's going to be where she's going to be feeling great. But there have been so many games where I'm like, on 1, have her, and it's just a clone ability or just a generic +2. And I'm like, yeah, I'll give a Stone +2 next turn. Yeah, I'll give Deadpool +2 next turn. Like, she's been, or just destroyed draw 2. Like, it's been really good in that regard. It's just, she's felt good.
Is she going to go in all of your decks? Every single one?
I don't think so, because there are certain decks in which it's really hard to kind of hone in on what you would, cut and things like that. Like, for example, like, I want to try her in like the Purple People Eater deck with like Darkhawk and stuff. I just don't know what the cut is. Maybe I say we're not going to do the Black Widow thing and just do Nico instead. But I'm also trying to see like what the opportunity is of like most of her abilities and how they line up with the other cards, right? There's really not any synergies in like wanting to destroy stuff in that kind of deck. But the plus is going to be pretty strong. Copying a Darkhawk, for example, is strong. Okay. You know what's been the most underrated ability? Let me do that. Let me give you that real quick. The most underrated ability that I thought would be one of the worst. Well, it's unfair to say worst. One of the most niche, I should say, is the change location. Do you know why?
Well, change location. I thought you were gonna try to sell me on the after you play your next card, move it 1 location to the right.
I've won 2 games off of that one alone, on Death's Domain and a Sanctum. It's come up. That one I already know. I'm like, in those instances alone, it's going to be cracked.
I think Legion and to a lesser extent Scarlet Witch has taught us Hey, changing locations can be pretty good.
Well, my biggest thing with her, especially in the context of Thanos, okay, in the stones, there have been a few times in which I'm kind of just looking at the board and then nowhere pops up, and I'm like, oh fuck, dude, I can't even change this reality stone. Now I fucking can.
Wait, what? Can you? Is it a
Yes.
not on reveal?
It's because it's Nico's on reveal.
Oh,
You
it's
play
Nico's
her
on
you
reveal.
play her in a different location,
Oh,
and then you play whatever else, like your Power Stone, for example, or Soul Stone, on nowhere, and then her on reveal triggers that location, and it gets around
interesting.
nowhere.
Would that work on like a Death's Domain, or does the car blow up
Yes,
before? Ooh, interesting.
it's
Okay,
it's
okay.
niche. Don't get me wrong, but it's proven. It's come up enough where I'm like, that's a very nice little nugget of info to keep track of how
Yeah,
that
no, that's
interaction
pretty
works.
cool. I'll be honest, like I'm not drawing Nico nearly as much as I would hope I would be. Um, so I haven't had those opportunities to see like some of those really interesting things. So I don't know. I'll keep playing with, but again, I think she's good. I think she's like top tier. I think you and I we're just a tier off from each other. That's where we're at. But last thing I'll say before we move on to these sick ass OTAs is yesterday I tweeted out because the number one deck in popularity was a Phoenix Force deck. It's still super high up there. Oh my god! So this Phoenix Force deck has 2,300 games, and this other one has 1,100 games, and like they're at like 45% win rates, negative cube rates. I tweeted it out. I'm like, what are you doing to this poor girl Nico? Like everybody was
I
just like,
saw.
I know where she's gonna fit in Phoenix Force decks. It's like those have never been that good. I know there was a minute when like some of the top players were like, Phoenix Force is actually pretty good. Phoenix Force, and I'm like, not really. And especially because everybody wants to use their fucking Human Torch variant, and I'm just like, nah, man, it's just not great.
So I'm
What's
pulling up a
this?
couple of examples of where she's had niche effects, but it's been impactful. Like here's the one you think is the worst is the giving her the extra power. That came in handy, surprisingly, because I was like,
What am I even looking at? They have
okay,
nothing on the
so
board.
she gave herself the extra power, right, and that just helped me win eternity range. Very niche, very small. I could have blocked it off with Elsa and Jeff, like you see I'm doing anyway, or I was planning to do anyway. So it's not that big of a deal, but worth noting, it came up. The little power can matter. Next one is copying Power Stone to play an additional decent early drop into Shuri's lab to quickly close it off and
Hey, you
win
didn't
it that
change this
way.
thing on the screen.
I was on the
Where is it?
wrong tab. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
So basically so on one, copy Power Stone and then go Power Stone, Psylocke on two, or I'm sorry, three, and then Professor X. That was dope. Really like that. And then this one was again that location change. I already used Reality Stone. It changed into Bar with No Name. I was like, fuck. But then Nico's like, I got you, and then I changed it. So like, look again. These are niche things, but that's why she's good because she brings the niche forward into something that you can deal with more often because every game has a line in which you're like, I kind of wish I had this card or this card. There's so many different like little cards that you're like, I'm never going to run them because the chance of them having an effect in most games is null and void. It's the reason Luke Cage before Haivo didn't see a whole lot of play outside of dedicated decks like hazmat decks, right? Where you want to protect your own stuff because you're trying to affect
Yeah.
everything. Because the opportunity cost of him of like, well, if negative zone comes up or sewer system, like that's or I can pair him with lizard and make sure that like if even if they fill, it doesn't get reduced. Doesn't come up enough was the issue, right? Because it's a very limited niche. But when you have 7 different effects that can all in their own right fill a niche that can happen in any given game, now we're talking about an entirely different card that's worth running.
Yeah. No, she's a decent card. I'll be playing a shit ton of her. Maybe I just wanted to debate a little bit, but yeah. Now you guys heard it. So if you're on the fence, you heard all the pros and cons. But yeah, let's jump into these sweet, beautiful OTAs because we got a big one. And we spent so much time on Nico. This is gonna be a long one. I can feel it, but we're gonna try to not keep it too long. So, are you ready? Get your stretching in because we got a big ol' update. All right.
All
So
right.
the first one, not surprising, Not surprising at all. The very first one on here is Elsa Bloodstone. So she was a 2/2. Give your next card if you play another card to fill a location, give a +3. She's the reason why we saw that kitty nerf. Well, now they're making it so she is giving +2 power. Yeah, I think Glenn even publicly said that they might have overtuned Elsa a little bit, you know. So yeah.
Where did he say it? Where did he say that? Come on, give them the plug. It was Snap Judgments.
Oh, was it on the Snap Judgments
because
podcast?
I edited that episode.
Oh.
I got to listen to it 3 times in a row through my editing. So I got to hear him say around 3 or 4 times in total, by the way, like throughout the course of the episode. He did mention a few times that they missed the mark on Elsa. A little bit too high. They're bad. Whoopsie daisy.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said too, because we'll be talking about Loki in a second, but there was so much whining, bitching, and moaning about Loki. Like, clearly Glenn is like the kind of dude who'll say, hey, we screwed up on launching this card at this power level, right?
Yeah.
Like, how often do you see a season pass card get nerfed during that season? Like, the way
we've only seen it happen once before, and that was Phoenix Force, and that was a buff. As far as changes go, I mean.
Yeah, so this is where I'm going to, because Brad, you were like, oh yeah, well that aged poorly. No, I'm going to say it. For all you people crying about Loki, if the data showed, because everybody was like, no, they're going to wait until after the season to nerf Loki because they don't want to lose money. They want people to buy it and spend the money. They just nerfed a season pass card in that season because they overtuned it. So suck a butt. All right? All of you people. If Loki was performing the way people thought he was during the Loki season, they would have fucking changed him. So eat shit. They nerfed Elsa.
And I will say I'll go over the thing that they say about Elsa in a second, but in regards to Loki, just as a little look ahead real quick, the way that they word the reasoning behind it actually makes me feel like it's for not the reason that people were complaining about. But we'll get to that in a moment. So what they go on to say about Elsa was Elsa landed and took the metagame by storm almost immediately. We certainly intended to make a strong card, but a few factors led us to risk too much with Elsa, and we're aiming to learn from those in the future. Oh, it's going to be Shaw in December. One of them was that Elsa and Loki were developed more separately than many of our season pass cards, owing to some unusual scheduling conflicts and other work. We underestimated how resilient each card could improve or would improve, and how much they would warp the meta as a pair. Our current set of 2-cost cards can too easily look specific enemy strategies and counterplay away, with Elsa making up for any power inefficiencies they might have. That package has appeared in multiple top-performing decks, and we're shaving only a little bit of power here. It's still Elsa's season after all, and we want her to shine, but it should contribute to a more balanced field of play. That is a long-winded way of saying, whoops, our bad.
Yeah. No, and you know what? Like, here's something I think about just constantly. And I love low-cost cards. I love bounce. But, like, there are far too many good low-cost cards. There are just way too many, right? And here's why I'm saying that. I just got the sickest. I got an inked split on my Goose with a black Kirby Crackle, and I could not use that fucking card. Jean Grey. Remember how broken we all thought Jean Grey was going to be? But that was the same season that the Silky Smooth deck started going everywhere. Like, there are just way too many good low-cost cards. And I don't know, we're about to talk about Loki, and this change somewhat helps it a little bit, but that doesn't change anything with, like, me wanting to use Goose. But yeah, like, you can't use Jean Grey because, like, think about playing Jean Grey against an Elsa deck, right? Whoever's playing the Elsa deck has a bunch of low-cost cards that they're looking to get in and out of lanes that they're filling up. You know what I mean? Jean Grey, like, you can't use her. You can't use Goose because they could just slide in underneath. And even with, like, the prevalence of Zabu in the past, which is a little bit counteracted by Mobius, but you see what I'm saying. I don't know. I'm on the fence because I want there not to be so many good low-cost cards, but I also like it because I like to play bounce. So that's my little rant.
Look, it's a classic tale as old as time when it comes to card games. And Glenn even said this on that same podcast when they did this mini game of, like, keep, cut, or pass or whatever, as far as, like, cards that they thought for each cost was in the top 5 cards of that respective cost. And every time that a card came up in which it was a threat, Glenn would say, I like threats more than answers. Threats are better than answers. Always threats over answers.
Yeah.
And he's correct, because you're the one that has the agency and you need your opponent to react. But this is what makes a good card game. When the threats and the answers to said threats are in a balance in which you can have reliable ways to deal with cards, that makes for a good metagame. I would argue right now we don't have enough efficient ways to deal with lower cost cards, which is why I'm a huge fan of that idea of Electra being changed to a 2/2 and sniping 2 costs, because a lot of those tech cards do sit in that.
We need that to happen so damn bad. So bad. Yeah. Like not as powerful as Killmonger, but like something that can do something decent. You know, I wouldn't even mind if she killed 2. She got 2 size, pow. You know what I mean?
Also, I have another change I would like to see, and I'm going to tack on just for free, Glenn, if you're listening, or anyone for Second Dinner. This is a little freebie that you guys can, I guarantee they've thought of this already, by the way. But Lady Deathstrike, make her a 4 cost, but with a caveat. This card's cost may not be reduced. No Zabu interaction, no Sarah interaction. Can't go further down from 4. And I guarantee you, I think it'd be a pretty interesting way to actually tack that on to certain cards and create an entirely new design space in which your fear is an interaction with like a Mr. Negative or a Zabu or a Sarah or whatever the case may be, or Ravonna if she ever gets buffed and is actually playable. You have a little, get out of jail free card in which the card's cost can't get reduced at all.
Yeah.
You can bump up the power level a little bit.
So what, you think putting her on the board sooner might deal with some of these low-cost cards?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, is the thought process like before they get buffed?
Zabu on 2, then a 3/4 Lady Deathstrike to get rid of a Mobius.
I thought you said her cost can't be reduced.
Yeah, I thought you were asking the reason was like you think that her being lower would be
No. Why would making her a 4-cost card like be good?
Oh, you have being able to have turns 5 and 6 in which you can deal or can basically work around away from these Luke Cages, these Mobius, and these types of early cost cards that are just blanket good would be overall just good in general, right? Just that extra turn. Doing it on 5 is a little bit awkward. It opens up turn 6, sure, but an additional turn makes all the difference, right?
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I'd be down. But yeah, let's talk about Loki. All right, because I was like, because I was debating with people. I'm just like, okay, because everybody said they're gonna nerf Loki after the season. And I'm like, okay, but what's the time frame? Right? Like, if they nerfed him 6 months after the season, are you still technically correct? If they nerfed him a year, But anyways, so all they're doing is they're making him a 4 cost. That's it. That's all they're doing. Yeah. They made him a 4 cost. So yeah. So here's what it says. It says, Loki's been a tricky card for us. Our internal Loki decks weren't as boldly aggressive as a lot of the top ones proved to be, and there were so many different versions after release that we wanted to better understand his core strengths out in the wild before making any adjustments. So real quick, when I read that, I was like, what do you mean? Like, what were you people testing internally, right? And this is where I think, like, they need to get us creators in there helping out with because I'm like all the top Loki decks seem to be insanely obvious to me. Am I crazy in saying that?
No, just put as much shit in your hand and make collector big.
Yeah. That's why I'm just like, what? And we have so many card generation cards that help out with a collector and stuff like that. That's why I'm just like, what was your internal testing? But anyways, and yes, having Loki be a top card for the Loki season was also a goal for gameplay. The same way we wanted to move to matter during the Spider-Verse season and destroy for being in Japan. So also everybody complaining and saying like it's some like money grab or whatever and stuff like that. Like this, like they're very transparent about this, right? They just said it about Elsa. Now they're saying it about Loki. They said it about Move. They said it about Destroy. When we have a season pass card, we want it to be good. Like that's what we want. We want it to be good.
And it's funny, with them saying that, they've also missed the mark on several season pass cards in terms of like not being good at all.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I Anybody watching this on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment. I don't know what the fucking problem with that is, right? Like, think about, so the Spotlight cash system made cards way more accessible. That's just a fact. That's a fact, right? But by far, the most value you can get in Marvel Snap as a whole is a monthly season pass card. That is the most value you could possibly get. Why the fuck would they not want to make those cards good? Like, that is good for all of us. The cards that will get, that the most people will get, should be good. Like, I think that's great for the community. Like, why would it not? Why do people see that as some kind of like money hungry? Like, I am very like fucking like, I hate big corporations and like capitalism pisses me off. But this right here seems like a good thing. It seems like everybody's winning, right? Like, it's an insane value, you know? Like, well, I don't get it. Do you understand, Brad?
People don't like their investments being changed or messed with. They view a $10 card essentially. Here's the thing. You can break down, do all the math, and say the season pass, by you paying $10, essentially nets you $50 or $60 worth of Marvel Snap in-game stuff. Doesn't matter. When people get the season pass, most people, not all of course, but most, when they get it, they're associating that $10 price tag with the season pass card alone. Everything else is gravy.
And not only extra shit.
Yeah, they're just considering that card is worth 10 of my dollars. And you took that card that I paid $10 for and you changed it. I think that should be illegal. Is essentially like the idea. They don't like their things being touched with. And I get it on a certain extent, but I think they need to be aware of, let's use Zabu as an example. Zabu was egregious on release. Fucking egregious. And they fixed it. It was a better card afterwards as for the health of the game, and was still an incredibly powerful card and a staple. One that still sees play through Mobius.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just
these changes.
Like, I get what you're saying, but I just think it's very irrational of people. Like, for example, like,
people are irrational.
Like every car, every TV, every computer I ever get, like, it's going to get worse over time. Like, everything I buy is going to get worse over time. That's just the way life works, right? But when it comes to like card games, it's just people are incapable of relating it to like life, you know, these outside purchases, you know, and like people like the way they're so concerned about like, oh my God, should I get this card? I don't know what to do. And they get like analysis paralysis. It's like, what, you've never made a bad purchasing decision in your life? Like, sometimes you regret shit, whatever. Just do it, keep it moving, you know?
That's an old baby. Wish I had those 6K tokens back.
Please, Glenn, if you're listening to this episode, show Master Mold some fucking love. Give
him the ongoing ability that everyone suggested at this point. It's so good. The +1 for each Sentinel your opponent has.
Oh yeah, Jesus Christ, yeah. Why is the creator of the Sentinels weaker than the Sentinels? I just don't
doesn't benefit from them existing.
Yeah.
The flavor is so good.
Yeah, like, I'll make a Master Mold Sentinel deck, get buffed by the opponent, get buffed by mine. Oh my
Well, Lord. I think you'd have to make it Sentinels your opponent controls. If you make it work with yours, I think that's too good.
No way. What, with all the other big power shit we have out there, like, how big would Master Mold get, realistically? Right?
So
because I can only have one Sentinel.
On 2. Right?
Yeah.
Hey, hold on. Here's the line, right? Quinjet on 1, Master Mold on 2, Sentinel on 3, and you just go Sentinel.
Yeah, but Sentinel on 3, now Master Mold's a 2/3. Sentinel on 4, because you only have one Sentinel.
Correct.
Right? Now, and if your opponent knows that you're getting buffed, they're gonna be cautious about how many Sentinels they play, right?
Okay, so if we say each turn's going 3, 4, 5, and 6, double that. That's 8. So the biggest that he can be, if you're only going one Sentinel a turn, I guess technically it can be triple that. It can go up to 12 if your opponent plays both Sentinels each turn, which they can't actually until turn 4. So the biggest he can actually be is +11, right? So that would be a 213, a 213, but then
Yeah,
the
but
option.
how many times do Bishop and Angela get that big? How many times does Collector get that big for a 2
and with
cost
him
card?
being ongoing, I mean, you could also just make him like a Bishop or Angela, where he just gets +1 every time a Sentinel is played, right? That way Shadow King can mess with them. I guess it depends on what do they want,
Yeah,
Rogue and stuff to do it, or do
and
they want Enchantress or Shadow King?
and then also think about the fact that your opponent could control how big your guy gets and set him up for a Shang-Chi. Turn 6, I drop a Sentinel in Shang-Chi. Take him out.
Yeah.
Like, I think, like, I personally think that would be totally fine. Totally
Yeah,
fine.
okay. I think I can live with it. I think it's one they'd have to monitor and just be like just in case and keep an eye on it and see how it performs. But no, I'm a bit more on board now with that.
Yeah. So getting back to Loki, we only got halfway through their little justification. So Loki's strength seemed best realized at the top of the ladder. He's a card that really lets players leverage their skill with more average performance at lower ranks. When all was said and done, we determined Loki was offering a lot of freedom and adaptability as a 3-cost card with high power. As that let him compete for priority especially well. We're hoping this change leads to Loki decks that care a lot more about which cards they get and how to play them, as opposed to slamming raw power at an efficient cost. So what were you saying earlier about their reasoning behind Loki and your thoughts?
So the average person is going to say that Loki was busted because he's just busted. It's just the best card in the game. It's so good. It's insane. And they're looking at him at a very surface level kind of perspective, in which it's just a 3/5. You get some cheaper cards. It makes collector big. That was the idea. That was the concern for the average person, right?
Yeah.
They've basically confirmed here in this line. Loki's strength seemed best realized at the top of the ladder. He's a card that really lets players leverage their skill with more average performance at lower ranks. So this is an admission of overall, I guarantee you if they showed us his win rate as a whole, they'd be like, it's fine. It's within the metrics that we like. But the higher level, dangerous. Lower level, bad. So there's that balance. They're balancing this around the best players that there are, just the top of the top.
Yeah, and that's very interesting too, because they're looking at, because those are the most competitive players, right? But also, yeah, like I don't know, because I mentioned this before we hopped on. Like, I'm curious because if I went to Yale, right? If I went to Yale College and I'm a student there and we all think that this is the best, or like I create the idea that this is the best food, right? All of us are gonna eat that food, right? I just spread it. It spreads, this idea spreads, and we're all just gonna do that thing. Does it make it the best food? Not really. We're just all, we're gonna increase the revenue of whoever food we're buying. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, if everybody at the top believes this thing is gonna see the most play, and then just by them being the top players, like they're going to utilize it the best. Does that make sense? Does that analogy kind of click?
Sure.
Like, if you take the top tier of something and they're all doing the same thing, it's naturally just going to look like it's amazing, right?
Yeah, it's like comparing professional sports and athletes versus high school, right?
Yeah.
Where actually it has the inverse. Because if you look at the stats of like a professional football player in the NFL, and you're like, these are really good stats. Cooper Kupp might be the first receiver ever to pass 2,000 receiving yards. Good for him. Well, I can guarantee you, and that's on a 17-game schedule, there are high schoolers that have had like 5,000 receiving yards in the 12-game schedule because high school is lower level. So the best players stand out. That separation is so much larger in that lower level. Like if you look at the stats of what was it? Was it Adrian Peterson in high school, or am I thinking of like Mark Ingram? Either way, there was someone. Oh no, it was Derrick Henry. He had like 600 yards rushing a game in high school, which is fucking terrifying. By the way, and amazing running back, one of the best in the league. Never want to tackle him. If you want to laugh and you have no idea about football and this is all Greek to you, doesn't matter. Just Google Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram. I'll just show it in post. I'll show the photo. It's so funny. Derrick Henry is massive in comparison. You know what? I'll pull it up right now, but you can go on and continue
Yeah,
with
no,
my.
no, I was gonna say because I played high school football and everything, and it was true, right? Like we had so many players who were just like our running backs and stuff like that, and they would just get insane like touchdowns, just bonkers, right? And then they went to college, and once it started to level out a little bit, they were just like, they were like mid tier, just because the skill gap is like so much different, especially when you play against bad teams. So yeah, but I also wonder too. This makes me wonder: is this like a hint that they are balancing somewhat around like the competitive aspect of Marvel Snap? You know what I mean? Because they're blatantly saying like, "Hey, we're looking at the top skill players. Like this is clearly a nerf for the top tier."
Yeah, I think it's something where they're it is a mission to it a little bit, but it's like that balance thing, right? Where they just have to kind of cover all their bases. Um, so yeah, I do think it's mostly just leading into the competitive side. Also, this is the photo I'm talking about. Mark Ingram, in his own right, is not a small dude, but look at him next to Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is a monster. Derrick Henry's like he's 6'1" as a running back, which is actually might be 6'2". He's big for a running back. Running backs are usually 5'10", 5'9", maybe
Yeah.
5'11". And look at him in comparison. These are both grown ass men. He's dwarfing him. Like, what is Mark Ingram's height? Mark Ingram. Yeah, net worth. That's what I want. Thanks. He's 5'9".
5'9".
6'3". Big ass dude for a running back. He's
That is a
so
big dude.
big. He's huge. He's a monster. He's terrifying. But yeah, anyway. Loki's what do we think about Loki in terms of this change to being a 4/5? Like, do you think I'll start with the fact that not having access to turn 6 Loki, or I'm sorry, Coulson into Loki to go really ham on your collector makes me a little sad. You can still do like Sentinel Loki, right? Not as impactful, but it's
Loki. You could do Maria Hill Loki. You could do
you can go Maria Snowguard and Loki.
Yeah, Maria Snowguard Loki. You could do Snowguard Agent 13 Loki. Like, there's still a bunch of shit that you could do.
And the Maria Hill buff, now I'm thinking about it, does make it so this might not be as bad. You don't get to go super early into Loki on 3 and then just, play with your opponent's stuff and like be like, I'm better than you in that regard. But I think you're still going to win games by doing that on turn 4.
Here's the thing. Sometimes I like people playing an early Loki so I can hit their collector, like I know for a fact, hey, their collector is going to get big. So now I can hold on to my Shadow King, you know what I mean? But yeah, an early Loki does give them a bunch of low cost cards early on. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. They'll keep an eye on it and they'll do their thing. But the next one, now we get into the exciting shit. So they got my boy back. They hit Loki and collector. They took him down to a 2-0. They brought my boy back to a 2-2. I love it so much. They said, we made the previous collector nerf with the express goal of weakening Loki-based decks while we determined the best course of action for the once and future king of Asgard. Given the above, it's appropriate we return collector to his former stats. You goddamn right. You're damn right. I am so excited about this. I was like, man, like as soon as it happened, I'm like, man, it was almost like a rock slide. Right? every time they had to they're like, Darkhawk's doing a little too well. Let's see if we can fuck with Rock Slide a little, And I was like, collector just got Rock Slided. So yeah, I'm stoked about this. I want to put him back into some bounce decks and stuff. So yeah, I'm very, very excited about that. But yeah, like, is this gonna counteract some of the Loki stuff? I don't know. I don't see by the way, I forgot to mention this when we were talking about Loki. I was looking at the stats. Loki only has a 9% play rate right now. A lot of people just stopped playing the card. Yeah, a lot of people just stopped playing the card. So,
which does, in second and like all fairness to them, in reviewing this, does show like that example of Derrick Henry playing high school football, averaging 9 yards a carry in comparison to the rest of his counterparts at high school level. It shows the disparity a lot more because there's less, right? So less Loki means when you do see it, odds are it's a highly skilled player making better use of it than you will.
Yeah. I saw somebody. I muted somebody on Twitter. I think I mentioned this in a previous episode where I mentioned like I don't think a lot of people are giving credit to like Loki is a tough card to play. You really got to think and be smart and strategize. Someone's like, "LOL, Loki hard to play." Like, no, Loki wasn't good. He wasn't just like a play and win. Like right. Alioth, for example, isn't a super high skill level card. Like maintain priority and fucking drop Alioth. You know what I mean? Loki, like for example, the decision to play Loki and Coulson on turn 6 rather than Loki early, like that is a very strategic decision. Because if you're playing that on 6, you're not benefiting from any of the cards that you just took. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Anyways, happy Collector's back.
We have a change that I think is going to be very impactful, and they even admit to such in their description, and it's Angela. Angela's gone through a few changes. She used to be a 2/2 plus 2, then she got dropped to a 2/1 plus 2, then eventually a 2/0 plus 2, and she's been at that stat line for quite a while. Well, Chris, she's back to being a 2/2 once more, though instead of getting plus 2, she now only gets plus 1. And they go on to say that they've been avoiding this change for quite a while, with many other adjustments trying to rein in the Angela package and provide a more diverse way to build early power while retaining this linchpin card for some decks. However, those efforts have only dragged other cards down as Angela continued to soar, culminating in a week with Angela in 4 of our top 5 decks. It's time to see how Snap looks without Angela as a massive power source. We're sure this change will reverberate through the metagame in ways we just can't yet predict, so we're avoiding any nerfs or buffs trying to compensate for it and just going to wait and see what the future holds. I want to ask you this, Chris. If you were sitting in that room with them going over Angela and being part of this meeting, what do you think were potentially the predictions or things that they say they can't quite make accurate predictions for, but like what do you think those consequences are of this change would be?
Like I don't know. When I saw this, I was like, this is such a weird, interesting change. I don't know. I think they were like, I just think they were I think they were in the same situation that I'm in right now, where it's just like, hey, they were like, we gotta do something to Angela, right? But we have no idea what's gonna happen. When I look at this change as somebody who plays a shit ton of Angela, I just tagged you in a tweet not that long ago. I split this woman for the 10th time and still don't have a crackle on her, right? Like I play a ton of Angela and I see this for now as mainly a side grade, right? Like Angela with all the cards that have come out, she's just so versatile, right? So they're giving her 2 power. They're making it so she gets +1. And part of that, I'm like, okay, cool. Now she might be able to dodge Shang-Chi a little bit better because you had to be smart about that. You couldn't get her to 10 power too soon. You know, I'm like, oh, this kind of helps. But now that you have Elsa in the mix too, you're not just buffing Angela, you're buffing other cards. Because here's what a lot of people are doing, right? You do Angela on 2, then you do like an Elsa and a Kitty on 3, then you do like a Kitty and a Jeff, right? Now you can move Jeff, then you could do anything. You could do all sorts of things and just, you're buffing multiple cards on that lane, and some of them you can move out of that lane, right? So then if I start buffing Kitty, I could play her to another lane while Angela's getting buffed. Like, just because of all these cards that they've made, Angela is a tricky gal. I don't see what any kind of future consequences there can be. I just don't know, because Angela's just so tricky. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I want to have predictions for this. I'm trying to think of because if the Angela package with like Kitty kind of falls by the wayside, and combination with this change, the Elsa change, and then previously that Kitty change, then what are the other options, right? So you're probably still gonna play Elsa, so you probably just cut Angela Kitty, right? So then you're just going to be playing like Nightcrawler and Jeff, right? And then like maybe some other 1 or 2 drops to fit in. Maybe like I don't know, like maybe Nebula can like come back a little bit, or I don't know. Like I don't feel like there's going to be anything bad for the game in this sense. I can't think of anything bad for the game.
You think people are going to stop playing Angela because of this?
No, I'm saying worst case scenario. If they did, what's the alternative that they do? And does that look for a bad thing? I think Angela still sees play. I think it's still going to be a great card in decks, just not going to be able to fly up to like 15 power as often as she does, right? Or 16 because it's by 2. So, I don't know.
I still think like, cause I cannot wait to just try like more traditional bounce decks again with the collector thing. Cause like part of this, like I could be wrong. Like I think people won't expect it. They'll think, oh, Angela's still small, but like with bounce, like you could do some crazy shit still and get Angela at a pretty decent size. So I don't know. We'll see. It just feels like they wanted to do something. They didn't know what. And they're like, we'll see what happens. Because Werewolf by Night comes out next week, right?
Yeah.
And if you have Angela, Elsa, and Nico, you know, and just like some other cards, like because you could drop Werewolf by Night over there, get the Elsa buff, and then you move him, he gets another buff. You know what I mean? So like, there's gonna be a lot of power all over the place. So yeah, going back to Master Mold, I think we have a fair buff for Master Mold because all these other cards are getting fucking big and they're low cost. What is Werewolf by Night? Is he a 4 cost?
3/3, baby, or 3.
3/3.
Yeah,
Jesus
3/3.
Christ.
That's why he's gonna be great in Surfer.
Oh yeah.
That plays a lot of on reveals.
Things are gonna get silly. So yeah.
So,
but
speaking of big cards, the next change is for the big cards.
Yeah, it's the buddy of big cards, Sauron. So they're giving him the Shuri treatment, dropping him 1 power to 3/2. And yeah, Sauron decks. It says it might seem surprising, but Sauron has quietly been one of the strongest cards in the game for quite a while. Glenn said this way back in the day.
He did,
like way back in the day, when Shuri was at the top, because like you don't want to necessarily use Sauron in a deck that needs armor, but people are still doing it. It is mind-blowing to me. I cannot tell you how many people just pray to God that they have their turn 2 armor and turn 3 Sauron, you know? But
yeah, I'm people. Of course.
No.
Why would you not run armor in that
changed
list?
so many freaking Shuri decks because they just Sauron their armor and they drop it late. Anyways, Sauron decks are almost never outside the top 10 and often in the top 5. While Sauron himself is often our highest win rate card, there are other elements at play as Sauron doesn't seem play in other decks, which doesn't inflate his metrics, but the deck has finally crossed the line for us. Don't worry though, Sauron fans, we have some potential new tools planned for him in the future. I think that'll be good because Sauron is such a niche card, but I don't think this is doing anything to the Shuri deck, and the Shuri deck has been all over the place recently, and it's like, something I was going to say is I've been pretty bored with the meta lately, and I think these OTAs are just, they've made me so damn excited. But yeah, what do you think?
Mean?
So, other cards that would want to play Sauron?
That was my first thought, but like new tools planned for him in the future, like almost makes you feel like a further adjustment. But I mean, what ongoing cards that you want to turn off that they could make don't want to go into a Shuri deck?
Is Martyr ongoing or no? I think she's just a straight ability, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of those. I'm starting to wonder if they're doing too many. Yeah, she's just a straight up ability. Like starting to make cards that are just not ongoing, not on reveal. You know what I mean? I'm just like, are we getting too many of those? You know?
Maybe.
But yeah, I have no fucking idea what they're saying about what they're saying about Sauron and these future tools. Because I can't think of any data mine cards.
Gladiator's on reveal. Annihilus isn't on reveal. Martyr's just a triggered ability. What about December? Blob is on reveal and ongoing, but why the fuck would you turn off his ongoing? It's just, I mean, it's basically favorite deck more often than not. Firestar is on reveal. Havoc is a triggered ability that just does a thing. Celine is on reveal. What about January? We have no idea what's coming in January. We just have a January 1st Electra variant I can see. That's it. So,
Yeah. So I have no idea whether you leave a comment down below if you think you know what they might be talking about with Sauron. I have no idea.
Well, I'm trying to envision like what kind of design space would you have for a card that's an ongoing that you want to turn off? It's a negative, but like, so typically if there's a negative ongoing, right, they're going to compensate that by having higher power.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to do so. So how do you make it so that you have an ongoing you want to turn off because it's a negative, but still have low enough power where it just doesn't go in a Shuri deck?
Yeah.
Like that's where I'm confused is like how that can be a new tool.
Yeah. I have no idea. The only thing I can even think of is some weird kind of like high Evo-esque card for ongoings or non-ongoing. I have no idea. I don't know.
Maybe there's a card in which it's like, if this has its abilities removed, then it does something else.
Yeah.
But then you're like basically saying this is for Sauron, and that feels like a weird creation to me too.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to go about that.
Yeah, because it says, here's what's weird. Don't worry though, Sauron fans. Right? Like, I don't think a Sauron fan, I don't think anybody who loves playing Sauron decks is looking at this like, oh man, oh, like what? Like that's what weirds me out about this.
Like, yeah, that's why I feel like it's a potential rework.
Yeah.
Like, which I don't think is necessarily, you know, because they follow this up by like after saying the deck has finally crossed a line for us.
Yeah. So by saying that, when they're saying Sauron fans, it's almost like they're not saying like Marvel Snap players who are fans of playing Sauron decks. Like, I think they're talking about like people who love Sauron the character, right? Because anything that could change.
So many issues, like because the beloved, I don't want to cure cancer. I just want to turn people into dinosaurs.
That's what he does. What if he starts turning shit into raptors? And
I love him. It made me laugh so hard when I saw this card announced as a new card for Marvel Snap, and I was like, this fucking dude, this guy. Yeah. To this day, my Shuri deck with him, ever since he came out, I've always ran the Sauron version just so I can name the deck I don't want to cure cancer. That's what it's been forever.
Yeah, I saw I forgot it was like one of the main producers, or what's her name from Marvel Snap? She shared that comic where he's like, I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn people into dinosaurs. I started laughing so hard. I'm like, that's fantastic. Oh, anyways, let's rush through this next one. I don't care about the reasoning. Uatu, they're buffing him back up to a 1/2. I don't give a shit, and nobody else should. If you do care, stop listening to our podcast.
Well, hold on. Let me read this. Let me read this one thing. We're also. Because they're basically like, look, we were overly cautious. Here you go. He's a 1/2 again. But
were they that worried? Were they that worried, Brad? That when they made this fucking effect? Like, oh shit, if we keep him at 2 power, he might fucking wreck the meta.
Maybe they were rightfully worried if you think about what they're going to say here next. They say, we're also pleasantly surprised to see a few archetypes trying him out in decks that are very particular about which cards sit at which locations, like Armor and Galactus. He goes in Galactus decks. Look at that.
Did they not know that there was just a moron archetype that people would try Uatu in? Where just the dumbest Marvel Snap players would see that change and be like, oh, we'll see if we can make them work.
I tried him in a few decks. I really did. I was like, let's see if the info makes a difference. In some games, I was like, ha. I know what that is.
No, since like pool 1, if I ever saw somebody play their Uatu on a certain lane, I would just play my next card in that lane.
Yeah, that's why you just don't play Uatu if you have him in hand. Like, I don't care if he's the only card you have. Until that third location's revealed, don't fucking play your Uatu. It feels better to play him later on, so they're like, oh, that's how he got into that sanctum. I thought he was a lucky bastard. And I'm just like, look at this guy. Look at the dude.
Yeah. No, fuck that card. I don't know what they could do to that card. Like, you'd have to let me see their like hand. Like, I think that'd
be insanely powerful. Now, how about this? You see the top card of their deck.
Top 3 cards.
No, 1. It's Howard for your opponent's deck.
Every turn?
Yeah, every turn.
Okay, yeah. Let's do that. Yeah. I'll take it. All right, cool. Hellcow. Hellcow's getting buff. I love it. I love this so much. I don't know why. There's two reasons. One, I have a reason to use that disgusting utter filled pixel variant, but maybe I can get that dope ass venomized variant now. But anyways, they're buffing Hellcow from a 4/6 to a 4/8. Basically, our adjustments to a variety of discard effects have worked well. They have. And yeah, so basically he hasn't been as good as like Silver Samurai and Swordmaster. So now they're trying to make
Even
him
Swordmaster fucking sucks. Where's his buff?
Yeah. Yeah, so they're
He's
making him a
3/6 and
high-powered...
sees no play. A 3/6 in a dedicated archetype sees no play in that deck. That's insane to me.
So I think this is good. Like, discard, the risk has never been worth it, right? And with Hellcow, like, I would say they need to make him even stronger, but they kept him right below Shang-Chi range. You know what I mean? So I think this is the best they can do, aside from making him like a 3/8, which might be way too powerful. But yeah, if I'm discarding 2 cards from my hand, and one of those 2 is always 100% of the time going to be fucking Hella, like, this card better have some power behind it, you know? So I'm very, very happy about this. Yeah.
I mean, I'm interested in... So after seeing this change, Hellcow being a 4/8, I'm very interested in doing something potentially like a zoo style deck that runs like... or maybe not in zoo, but like a very early focused priority based, like just get a shitload of power down. Hellcow and like even Strong Guy maybe can be in this deck.
Like, I think this makes it worth it to try some Zabu style decks. Like, here's what I'm thinking, right?
Yeah,
one of the issues
is like pretty good.
Well, one of the issues with Ghost Rider is he only acts once, right? But if I have Hellcow, Ghost Rider, and Absorbing Man, you know, if I put Strong Guy in that deck too,
yeah.
If I have Dracula, maybe, you know, for the Dracula style zoo decks as well, like, there might be some interesting stuff you could do here. And it's crazy that just adding 2 power has made me think of this, you know, but at least, it's giving you enough power to be like, okay, if shit doesn't work out my way, at least I got some extra power. Because I was playing a Dracula zoo deck for a little while. I was like, this is pretty fucking legit. Like, especially with the blade buff, you know?
Yeah. The blade buff is really nice for that. And even like Black Knight is okay in that kind of deck, but I would like
Black Knight with Hellcow just seems like a nightmare.
Oh no, you don't play it in this version. Hellcow, that's so stupid. You just cut Black Knight for Hellcow. It's reject modern or modern whatever and fucking embrace tradition, right? It's the bringing back the Hellcow and cutting the Black Knight.
Yeah. So we'll see. I want to try some stuff out. I've always wanted Hellcow to be good. I've just never been a big enough discard fan to not be annoyed by his ability.
You're still probably gonna be waiting, but that's fine. This is a step in the right direction. Do you think they should make Swordmaster? I think should be the furthest leftmost card discard, right? And then Hellcow should just be like,
if they did that, they would definitely take away his power.
2 middle, 2 ends.
Like, if they change Swordmaster at all, they're gonna take away his power. Like, he's the only 3/6, right? Aside from what we're getting with
Martyr,
Gladiator.
No, Gladiator. Yeah. No, Gladiator's a 3/7. Was a 3/8. No,
he was a 3/8, then a 3/7. But Swordmaster being a 3/6, if they gave him a targeted ability like they did with Blade, like, they would take him down to like a 3/5 or 3/4. I'm thinking. Because we're already seeing how good that Blade effect is.
Yeah, I think if he's a 3/5, discarding the leftmost card would be.
How are you going to be a master of swords and discard some random shit?
Because they determined that all their discard effects are just people with swords.
Yeah.
That's why they all have the shing effect.
Shing. Yeah, I would like to see a Swordmaster buff, though. Yeah, if they could, like, I think that's where they need to land with discard, though, is make it so it's like, just like Blade, right? They need to do that more, right? So you have some agency, but there's randomness, almost like with Nico, right? Like Nico, you have agency, but there's randomness in there to balance it out. Because I've played a shit ton of Blade, and there's plenty of times where I'm just like, nope, can't do that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So,
what about I lost it. I had it. It was another discard thing. It was Moon Knight. Moon Knight
Oh
needs some love
God.
too.
God, I
'Cause Moon
like
Knight
the variants. There's
fucking
such good
sucks.
variants. He's such a dope character, and like,
Yeah.
shit. Please, please, Moon Knight before Swordmaster. Just
Do
do.
you think I would like to see them try one where Moon Knight just doesn't discard your card, only your opponent's. 3/3
Well, Glenn
opponent
already said
discards
that
a
that's
card.
like such a powerful ability. They don't want to fuck with that.
I know, but like is it that crazy for a 3/3
Like,
to do that? Make it a
I
3/2 or
wonder.
3/1.
I wonder if it'd be fair to discard a card from your opponent's deck rather than their
Then
hand.
it's not discarding.
Yeah,
It'd be just Yondu.
destroying like a Yondu or
You
something.
can't because like I've seen people like Pulse made this argument I know I've heard before of like discarding stuff from the deck, and like it's like it doesn't work because discard means hand gone. Like that's what that means. You cannot discard from the deck. Now, if they introduce the word mill into Marvel Snap, then that's an entirely different thing in general. But then I think you'd have to, instead of considering things that are, well, there's things that cared about stuff that's been discarded versus stuff that's been destroyed, right? So you can't just be like it's a blanket graveyard now, and mill now qualifies in that. Now, do you consider a mill pile? But then why would you introduce mill in a deck, a 12 card deck anyway? Because that's a powerful effect. But
Yeah,
there's no milling out your opponent to win like other CCGs, so that doesn't make sense either. So long-winded way of saying discarding deck don't work.
yeah. I don't know. Maybe a Moon Knight rework. I guess like they need like discard cards, but like the dude's just he's
He
such a
doesn't even need to be a discard card at this point. Just make him something entirely different, actually.
yeah. Just to give him the Spider-Man treatment.
Because like, how is that flavorful? By the way,
I don't know.
like
Because what I keep thinking about is almost like an opponent style Nakia, right? Where he like throws his thing, you know how her thing it like circles around and hits your deck. If you hit their hand or cards on the board and shaved off like one power, or even if like one power from each lane or something like that, you know, which might be somewhat balanced. That's what comes to mind. Like
that's
just
just what
throwing his little
Scorpion
almost like
does, though.
fuck Scorpion. Yeah. So do it to stuff on the board. Just whoop. Because Hazmat takes
Another
away 2
affliction.
power. Yeah, so I'm thinking Affliction. Hazmat takes away 2 power. This one takes away 1, but it only
Hasn't
affects
only
them.
takes away one.
Oh yeah, it does.
You're so used to playing your on Wong.
Yeah. Okay, well somebody figure out a Moon Knight rework. But yeah.
And if someone
I
can
never-
explain to me how him discarding an opponent's card and your own is flavorful, I would like to know that too.
Yeah, give him something, or maybe even make him so he turns into like Mark Spector and the other one, his other personality, and that rotates in your hand. They have 3 distinct abilities.
Yeah, if we're gonna do that, let's do that with Kang first, please.
Oh yeah, God, they could do so much with Kang. The big bad. The other day I was watching Jeff's stream, and he was taking deck submissions, and somebody said make a deck with all the big bads, but you don't have to use Kang. I was like, God, that poor motherfucker, poor Kang.
So only use 3 of them.
Yeah, but it was
That
just
work. That oddly
Kang
work
was
well
so
together already.
Kang was so bad that they're just like, you don't even got to use this. You don't even have to use this.
I don't mind Kang. I think Kang's fine. I don't think I think people think that Kang is bad as they're silly. I
Okay.
think
All right, let me see you just playing with Kang for a week in all your decks.
I did that already.
What, when he came out?
No, with my Infinite Maniac deck, I fucking got 2 and I got 3 Infinity tickets and 1 Infinity Border with a deck that ran Kang.
I don't believe it. No, I think I remember. Calm down. I'm not calling you a liar. Shut your face. Let's talk about Spectrum. Spectrum is what I'm the most excited for. My girl is finally getting the love she deserves. This has been the fucking buff people have been asking for like since I started playing Marvel
Not
Snap,
a good buff. I'm sorry.
since,
I'm gonna
you're a
hurt you right
douche.
now.
Okay,
It's shit. This is
they're
bad.
buffing her from a 6'5" to a 6'7".
Yeah, this sucks.
How does this suck? How does this
Because
suck?
it still creates an issue of like the whole thing is okay, look. Whenever I play Spectrum, typically the lane I'm playing her in, because usually I'm trying to just going like 4 and 4 of like ongoing stuff and just fill those. And I'm playing her in the other lane I don't give a shit about. And I'm like, I don't care about winning this lane. Just trying to really grow over here. Sometimes she'll fit in on those lanes, and that can, I guess, be a little bit of difference. I would have rather seen +3 and keep her at a 6'5".
At least she's on the radar. At least, well, 6'3"
Yeah,
instead of.
I think she just still flat out fucking sucks. I'll put it this way. On average, if we think of a curve, how many ongoing cards are you getting on the board in an ongoing Spectrum deck? Not counting Thanos, by the way, because Power Stone and Soul Stone are way easier to fit in.
Sometimes, here, let me pull up this deck, unless I think I might have just deleted it, damn it. But,
well, while you're finding it, let's think about, so Ant-Man on 1, and then like what, like a Luke Cage, Colossus, whatever other 2-drop on guard, Mobius, cool. 3, I guess maybe you can do like Captain America if you really want to do that kind of thing, or Cosmo is probably a bit more realistic. Turn 4, maybe you're doing Warpath, right? Because it gets pretty big. Or maybe you're high rolling going 2 other 2-drops, right? So now you're at 5, okay, on turn 4, and then on 5 you go another 1 or 2, right? So probably all 1. On average, I would say 5, maybe 6 ongoing cards on board when you play Spectrum, right? Closer to 5.
So this deck that I'm looking at, it has Ant-Man, Howard, Goose, Luke Cage, Armor, Mobius. So these are all low-cost cards, by the way, right?
Yeah.
And here's what I was just thinking too. You know what's an ongoing card that I'd never seen playing with Spectrum is fucking Sarah, right? Sarah then enables you to play Spectrum and one of your 2-cost cards or a 1-cost card on the final turn.
Yeah.
And she's 7? She's 7 power? 7 power adding +2? Like, that seems pretty decent.
Okay. So, but what I'm saying is like on average, probably 5 or 6 cards, right?
Sometimes, like with this deck, like I feel like I remember filling up like 2 lanes. I feel like I remember filling up 2 lanes. Is that rare? Is that very rare?
I don't know. I don't play enough. I played ongoing Spectrum when Destroyer was the top deck.
Yeah.
How far are we removed from that now? But my point is, like, based on my experience playing it, and I'm more than happy to be wrong. So if anyone has other decks you can share in the comments or whatever, discuss Spectrum. My thinking is typically you're going to be, buffing on average between 4 and 6 cards, closer to 4 or 5, which represents 8 or 10 extra power, which is a pretty much in line with Doctor Doom as far as the reach of the other lanes. Yes, this is not a nothing change, of course. I just don't think this is going to do anything which it's going to make Spectrum way better. Now, I am interested still, I guess, is like I do like the Wong going Spectrum list. I'm a fan of that because you do like some Luke Cage, Hazmat stuff as well, and like Howard and things. And then Spectrum onto it and just double hit. But I still would have liked to see +3 instead because she's already so niche in terms of what she works with, and there's a lot of ongoing cards that are just like either don't work with her in general because you need a build around like Darkhawk, for example, right? You're not going to play Spectrum in a Darkhawk list. So while there's a lot of ongoings, the ongoings she works with best are the ones that are just like generic ongoings, like Ant-Man, like maybe Howard or Colossus or Mobius, those kind of ones, like your tech cards, really. And those are already low power anyway. So if you have a lane of, like, if you're maxing out 4, right? Ant-Man, Luke Cage, Mobius, Cosmo, right? That's 4, 7, 9, 12 power in a single lane, plus 8, that's 20.
Not bad.
But not as good as plenty of other decks
Yeah.
in a single lane. Like, a Thanos player can just go a couple stones and a dino and be like, well, I won that lane. Like, like that's what I'm saying. Like, comparatively, I think this is great. It's on the radar, and I think it's great that they're trying it. It's long overdue, but she needs a little bit of something else if they want her to be competitive. But of course, not every card has to be competitive. But I would argue that a 6-drop should be, because we need fucking more of them to compete with the other 6-drops.
We'll see if they eventually buffer again. I think we're gonna see her play rate jump a little bit if it falls off. We'll see. But I'm also trying to think of, like, does she work good now with, like, Ravonna? Well, Ravonna needs to be dropped to a 2 cost. I can't believe that they didn't do that. Like, how did they not do that yet? Like, literally, like, the day Ravonna was released, like Glenn said, she was originally gonna be a 2 cost, thought that'd be too strong. If she doesn't work out, we're gonna drop her. Like, how much info do you need? Like, I think that's just a testament to how little she's played. They fucking forgot she exists. They're not even checking her data. They're like,
she's really a top 10 card.
But yeah, like, think about, like, if you could put Ravonna in there, and then you have, like, now you have an Iron Man that you could buff to +2 power too. That makes a much bigger lane.
Yeah, I guess you can go Iron Man on 4 and then, like, Mystique into something else on 5 that's 2 and something, and then buff those are nice. But then what are you doing prior to the, because here is again wherein lies the issue. Ant-Man, Mobius, Ravonna, Iron Man, Mystique plus Cosmo, Spectrum. Okay, that's not a lot of power, where if we did the math in those 2 lanes, Ant-Man, Mobius, again, that's 7, plus Ravonna, that's 10. If you have, like, another, then Iron Man in that lane, you're at 20, right? And then your second lane is 2 cards, like Mystique and Cosmo, okay? That's 6, okay? Now you're adding 8, so it's 18, now you're at 36. That lane's respectful, but the second lane with Mystique is garbage. But you have to play Spectrum on the Mystique lane, and there where you can't play Cosmo now. You have to play a different ongoing card that's 3 or around 3. And, like, that's going with Magical Christmas Land too, where you have this perfect curve and your opponent doesn't just Goliath your Spectrum, right? Because they, like, you're going to play into that Mystique lane because you have...
Or if you had armor in your lane.
Yeah, I guess Mystique and Armor can be that one. So you're still at 6. And then Spectrum. Then you go to 13, and then +2, 4. Now you're at 17. Now you multiple to 34. Is that right?
I'm not a math guy.
I think that's 34.
I just see big number.
So that's 36 and 34 in these 2 respective lanes. I think if the stars align, which is far better, don't get me wrong. But when you don't draw Spectrum, you're just like, wow, I have 10 power with
unless
these Iron Lads.
Unless you have Iron Lad in that deck. All right? Because you have Howard, you got Iron Lad. Do some crazy shit.
Yeah, we're running Howard, yeah. And I guess you could also run Jubilee if you really wanted to, like, cheat into stuff.
Don't worry. I'll be cooking. We're gonna see. I've been
waiting for some. I don't think it'll be a bad deck. Like, I like ongoing, for example. I like ongoing decks. I think they're cool. I think they're interesting. I liked playing the ongoing Thanos deck with Jean Grey and Spectrum at the top end. Thought that was a fun deck. I enjoyed it. But is it the best version of the deck that you could be playing with Thanos? Absolutely not. Will that change with this change with Spectrum? Absolutely not. Will there be an ongoing Spectrum deck at the top of the meta? Highly doubtful. I'd love for there to be. Again, I want to be wrong in this case. There are certain instances where I want to be wrong. I would love to be wrong about Spectrum. I just don't think it's enough. But again, I don't think Second Dinner is very interested in making everything competitive, so they're probably not caring as much in that regard anyway.
But they're doing a little something.
Yeah.
So yeah. Wait, someone just I guess something just popped up in Marvel Snap. Breaking news. We're aware of an issue with one of Nico's spells causing you to disconnect.
Oh, yeah,
If it
yeah.
destroys certain cards. You can reconnect to the game if it happens.
Yeah, I saw that. That's
So Nico's broken. She's busted.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. A couple new Nico variants just hit the shop too, which are cool, but here's what I did. I bought Nico with tokens, and then I used 2 caches and got the Spotlight variant. That is probably one of my favorites. I don't know if I like these other ones.
Well,
this one's decent. She looks like a little goth girl in her dress, so that's cool.
Is the Midnight Suns one?
No, the Midnight Sun one is another one. I don't know. Like, I think the Midnight Sun variants are like decent. Like, they're definitely, you know, you have to have a certain taste for them. I might have gotten some if they were 700. Like, I understand why they're 1,200. People kept debating me about it. I'm like, listen, I get why they're 1,200, but me and my taste, like, I'm just not getting them at 1,200. Like, especially because they all look the same. You know what I mean? Like, every single one of them has the same, like, style, so I'm like, I'm not one of those people who's like, I'm going to make a Dan Hip deck, or I would make a Max Grek one. I do like his stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this one quite a bit. I think that one's really cool. This one's cool. The base one's fine. Peach Mocha's great. I do like that one. This one I think is fine, but I just wasn't really interested in getting it.
Bradford doesn't like the demon horns?
Yeah. It's not my style.
Demon horns.
It's just the art style is what turns me off from it. I'll put it this way. If this design was in like this style or this style here, I'd be way more into it. It's just it's a little too anime adjacent for me.
Yeah.
But nothing wrong with it. I can appreciate the art. I think it looks cool. It's just not, I don't really care enough, especially in the fact that I got her on the first Spotlight and I was like, not giving a shit.
Yeah. Done.
Don't care.
Makes sense. Cool. Well, that was a fun episode. Are there any cards aside from Master Mold that you hope get buffed? So you guys, behind the scenes, we've had discussions. We don't like necessarily doing episodes that other people do, and a lot of people are like, oh, what cards do we want to be buffed? But I'm going to ask you finally, and maybe we could dedicate an episode to it. But any other cards that you hope get buffed?
Dude, that's so tough. There's the easy answers of like, yeah, Captain America, Punisher, right? Those are the obvious ones that should be buffed.
Punisher going to get some love.
They're never going to touch these cards because they impact early play too much.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's something I want to do. That Psylocke change would be really cool. What is a card that like just doesn't see enough play that I feel like it should? Or like could if it had a little bit of love. I'm trying to like I'm picturing my head of like the collection as I'm scrolling down.
Yeah.
Maybe Yellow Jacket. I would like to see something with, but then like that's dangerous, I guess, because it's effectively, if you play it in the right deck, it's an O2, and that's really good. It could. Also, by the way, Nico makes those cards way better. By the way, Wasp and any zero cost card, Nico just makes those way better because it makes their opportunity cost a lot better now because you can play them literally whenever you want, which now can make Nico more impactful of being able to squeeze them in.
What about Echo? Does Echo need a buff?
No, Echo will have her time in the sun.
Eventually. I
guess maybe a 1/3, but making her a 1/3 tech card is a bit too good, I think, in my mind.
You know, they need to quit dicking around with Drax. That's what they need to quit doing. They need to quit giving him these little, like, every couple months, giving him we'll do that. No, just make him a big asshole. You know what I mean? Just huge. Just give him something ridiculous, right? We'll deal with the Shang-Chi's. That's his potential downside. You know, like, it's already hard enough to land it, but like, right now he gets as big as what? Jessica Jones, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like, what the fuck? Why would I just use Jessica Jones?
4/5, where Jessica Jones 4 is a 4/4.
Yeah, but like, with him, I have to hit the same lane, right? And like Jessica, no matter what, Like, when are situations where you're not going to get Jessica Jones's buff to turn her into a 4/8?
Late game situations where you're just like, you have to accept you have to play there anyway. But no,
Yeah, which is very rare. Would you, here, let me put it this way.
Honestly, I could see Jessica Jones getting a buff, by the way.
That'd be cool. Would you rather play Drax or Crossbones?
Crossbones.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's insane. Who wins in a fight? Drax or Crossbones?
Drax.
Drax would rip that motherfucker in half. Like, buff Drax. Make him ridiculously big. That's what I want. And then, yeah, if we ever talk to Glenn Jones, because I would say buff Spider-Man 2099, but he thinks he's good. I want Nico to work with Spider-Man 2099, but that is just like so niche, right? You have a 1 in 7 chance of having something to enable Spider-Man 2099.
Yeah.
But I saw a deck and I've been meaning to test it out. It's way too move heavy. I made a video about a deck a while back that was Spider-Man 2099. I need to find it because I think it also had Stegron in it. And you're just fucking with them. It had Arrow too. And like, I think Nico could slot into there and that'll be fun.
I love me some Stegron. Stegron's great.
Yeah, Stegron's fun.
I could see Drax getting a little bit of love, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it would make more sense if Drax was in Gamora's spot and she was the 4. But then she's the deadliest woman in the galaxy, you know? So, like, it feels disrespectful to not have her as the 5 cost. Maybe you just shift her up to a 6 cost and make her even bigger. And then make Drax the 5 cost, and then just maybe you put Groot in as the 4 cost now, and then Star-Lord can be the 3 cost because you moved up from the 2 cost or from 1 cost to 2 cost Mantis. So now you have the perfect situation of, because there is no 6 drop Guardian of the Galaxy or in that realm, right? None of them.
No.
So now you could have Yondu 1, Mantis 2, Star-Lord 3, Groot 4, Drax 5, Gamora 6.
There you go. I found this deck. I'm gonna put Nico in here and fuck some shit up. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. That's what I'm gonna do after this episode. Well, actually, I got to get back to work. So, anyways, but I'll try this later. All right, but yeah, fun episode, Brad. You working on anything?
Articles and video things, articles. I'm also you're gonna love this one. I just may be in I probably won't be the one editing it for once, so that's a little bit of weight off my shoulders, but this might be my 4th podcast I'll be a part of.
You're gonna start another one?
Potentially. It's not gonna be Marvel Snap. It's Lorcana.
Lorcana?
Yep.
I've been holding it in because I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, but I just cannot give a shit less about that damn game. Like, I don't even think
love it. It's so much fun.
I don't even think it's because it's a paper card game and I'm just like, don't feel like doing all that. I've never, and I don't know if something's wrong with me.
Pixelborn. It's free.
Pixelborn?
Yeah, it's an online. It's a client.
It's a simulator. My thing is, I've just never been like a huge Disney guy. Just never.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. If this was 5 years ago, would never touch the game because it's just not the IP I gave a shit about. But once I got into Magic for the first time and got beyond, because again, we've gone over the story. I got into Magic because the Egypt thing, right? The Amonkhet theme. Once I got past Amonkhet and played it for as long as I have, and just started appreciating the game for the game and stopped really caring about what the theme was of respective sets, even when it was the things I don't like knights and dragons and stuff, then I'm at the point where I just do not give a flying fuck about the IP anymore. And I was like, that's where I was more open to Orkana. I was like, look, I am not a Disney adult. I don't particularly give a shit about Disney that much beyond like the properties that they own due to the monopolization of, media.
Yeah.
But I want to play a good TCG. Let's see if the TCG is good. Like I've done that with so many things. Like I like Dragon Ball Z, liked watching it as a kid. Not my favorite thing in the world, but I like it. So I liked playing the game. I gave it a try, and I was like, it's a fun game. The new One Piece game. I've read a few things of the manga.
There's a One Piece game now?
It's pretty good. Pretty good game.
Yeah.
I can enjoy it. It's not quite my thing because of like the vibe that it gives off of like the stylization of it. But yeah, I can say objectively, it's a well-designed, pretty cool game. Flesh and Blood. Don't care for it too much. Not my cup of tea, but I give it a try. In Lorcana, as far as the game itself goes, really well-designed, very good game. It's weird when your opponent goes, I play a didgeridoo. I'm going to use my didgeridoo to exert or to heal my Rapunzel. And I'm like, a little weird when they say that because it kind of takes you out of it for a second. But I'm like, whatever. If once I get into the swing of it and I'm in like competitive mode of just like I want to win and I have to think about the lines here, then the IP no longer matters to me.
Interesting.
I would give it a try. Even if you don't like Disney, who cares? The game itself is fun.
Yeah, my thing, I'm just like, I don't know if I have the time, the money, all the things.
Pixelborn is free.
Maybe I'll check that out. Maybe I'll check that out. Like I want to play more DC Dual Force, but like the community is like I don't know what it is like.
They haven't full released yet, right? They're still in beta?
But they just released it on Steam. But there was still some bugs. Like there's a bug that happens every now and then where I have to reinstall the game. I think it being on Steam now fixed that. But I'll say this. And it really makes me appreciate Marvel Snap. When I came into Marvel Snap, Snap.fan was already there. I think Marvel Snap Zone might have been there. For DC Dual Force, there's nothing, right? Like they just released the Batman Who Laughs. I'm like, oh fuck, sick, right? And like, I don't feel like making a deck. And the only website they have is just like people just toss decks out there. And I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck to do with this. What?
You want to make a website? You want to be the kingpins of DC Dual Force?
Brad, I think I mentioned to you. So you're like, hey, Chris, what are you working on? Bitch, I am taking like game development courses, working full time, doing my YouTube channel.
We were still we went on a different tangent. Okay,
talking to you every 2 weeks. Yeah, but yeah, no, there is a space there, but like it needs to collect data, basically. Right now they have like a site where you can build decks, but like people just throw whatever the fuck they want up there. And like, I'm like, I don't know if this is decent or not. You know what I mean? Like I want to at least go in.
Is right now too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's tournaments, but like I'll look at decks and like I'll go to like the couple of like online sites for decks and shit. And it's just like new decks. And I'm like, I would like to see the tournament decks, please. And I have to go find someone's Reddit post of like the 5K that happened with like grainy ass pictures that people took with their phones. In the year 2023, are you using a fucking Nokia? Like, what are you doing? Take a better picture.
Yeah, so it's made me really appreciate just like the Marvel Snap community and the sites that go up. I don't know how much that has to do with Second Dinner and just their ability to pull that data with a paper card game. That's obviously different. But yeah, my time too has been so soaked up. Like even when I think about loading up DC Duels Force, I'm like, I could be doing something else. Fucking Spider-Man 2 just came out. Spent my entire weekend playing that. You know, just life, man.
PlayStation. So
yeah, you're missing out. That game's so fucking good.
I think I love Spider-Man. Don't get me wrong. And I think the game's cool. I know I would have fun with it. I loved the original Spider-Man 2, the Sam Raimi one. Where they first introduced the web swinging and shit like that. I know I would love playing the game, but I can't justify getting a PlayStation just for Spider-Man. Just can't do it. I'm not you.
Well, yo, you have a girlfriend, and my girlfriend got me my PS5. Tell her to hook you up.
She just bought me like $200 Ray-Bans. So no.
Fucking sunglasses? That's like 50% of a PS5 you could have got there.
I didn't choose it. I'm grateful for it. I'm appreciative. And to be fair, every pair of sunglasses I've ever owned sucked. Like there's the shitty cheap kind where it's like, this does nothing. It just makes a slightly lower tint.
Yeah, that's what I do. I just get cheap gas station glasses. I don't give a fuck. Anyways, I got to get back to work. Let's wrap this thing up.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. We love you. We appreciate you,
man.
Full circle, baby. Thank you so much. We love you. We appreciate you. And as my pastor always used to say, may our faces shine on you and be gracious to you. May we look on you in favor and give you our peace as we give you our thanks. Amen.
Peace.
Okay, bye.